Hi, friends. Welcome back to Knit Your Stress Away. I am Nadine Medina, the host here on the podcast. And today is the last episode of the Summer Throwback series, where we are bringing back older episodes from this podcast from the last year and a half that were big hits and that were super fun to record and bring to you. And I'm excited to bring you this last episode back. Things that I wish I knew when I first started knitting again after 20 years. Let me just tell you, there was definitely a learning curve, and there were definitely things that I would have skipped if I had known. So here I am giving you all the rundown on the things that you can skip and the things that I honestly wish someone had told me. So here I am telling you, if you're in the beginning phases, this episode is great for you. You may have listened to it in the past. Give it a listen again, share it with a friend who might need this. And also, just so you know, there may be a couple links in there that I might mention in this episode that aren't valid anymore if you click on them. But rest assured that you can find everything that you need, including free downloads for beginner knitters, workshops, guides, and all those things at theknittingmamas.com. Just theknittingmamas.com. Everything is right there from, like I said, freebies, downloads, the guide, the workshop, all the stuff. And you can also find my Instagram there and we can connect over there. So hope you enjoyed this last throwback episode. And as of next week, we are back in new episode mode and I hope you enjoy. Talk to you soon. Hey there, friends. Welcome back to Knit Your Stress Away, your podcast about knitting as a tool for stress relief and to learn knitting as a total beginner. I'm Nadine. I'm your host here on the podcast. And today I'm taking you down a little trip down memory lane, sharing what I wish I had known when I picked up my knitting needles again after 20 years of not touching them. If you're new to knitting, or maybe you've tried before and put it down again, I think you're going to really find this episode helpful. Knitting is such an amazing skill to have, but like anything new, it can totally feel overwhelming in the beginning. And I remember making so many mistakes when I restarted, but I'm here to help to avoid them. So whether you're just starting out or coming back to knitting after a long break, this episode is for you. So let's dive in. Welcome to Knit Your Stress Away. I am Nadine Medina, a mom who rediscovered knitting during a stressful season and found it to be the ultimate way to relax, recharge, and reconnect with myself. If you're feeling overwhelmed and wondering if there's a creative outlet that could actually help you feel calmer and in more control, you're in the right place. In this podcast, I'll show you how knitting can be a simple stress-busting tool, even if you've never picked up needles before. So take a deep breath, let go of the chaos for a moment, and let's explore how knitting could become your new favorite way to find calm and joy. Before we dive into the episode, exciting news. The enrollment is officially open for my Knitting Made Simple workshop happening on March 12th and March 14th. This live step-by-step class is designed to help absolute beginners start knitting with confidence. If you've been struggling to figure it out all on your own, this is your chance to get hands-on help in a supportive settings. Spots are limited to these 2 sessions, so get your registration in now. You can sign up at theknittingmamas.com/workshop or just click the link in the show notes. All right, let's dive into today's topic, what I wish I knew when I started knitting again after 20 years. So here it goes. Number 1, knitting does not have to be perfect to be enjoyable. I am sometimes a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to everything. So naturally, when I first picked up my needles again, I was super focused on trying to make everything look flawless. But of course, I didn't know how to do that because I hadn't knitted in 20 years. And even before that, I was not making any masterpieces by any means, right? But I was like, oh my gosh, I'm making a mistake. This is uneven looking, And I also, on the flip side, am a person who does not like to do things multiple times over and over. It's just not fun for me to unravel something that I have already made because there's a mistake in there. So it's this in between. I'm I hate looking at the mistake, but at the same time, I just don't want to undo it. So it's not a good place to be. So something had to change. I either had to unravel it and be fine with it or be cool with the mistake or something in between. So I settled on perfection is not the goal, but progress is. Because, and here's why. right? I think you can apply that like reasoning and that mindset to so many other things in life that will get you off the hook and that will make you feel so much less under pressure and stressed by something that is supposed to just fill your time with enjoyable things anyway, right? So why put pressure on ourselves when it comes to a hobby that is supposed to bring us more peace? To me, knitting is meant to be enjoyable, meditative, and creative, and imperfections, in my opinion, they're just part of the process. So if I could go back, I would remind myself much earlier, right? And I would love to just be telling myself that every knitter, even the most experienced ones, make mistakes, and that is totally okay. And you decide. I talk about this a lot. I talk about this on my Instagram all the time because there's days when I'm just not even touching my needles. Doesn't happen very often, but when it does, the last thing I want to do is beat myself up over it. And the same goes for any mistake that you make. I always kind of try to walk myself through a set of questions when I make a mistake. Like, is it worth unraveling a whole bunch of stuff that looks perfectly fine just to fix that one mistake? Like, is it in a place where it really is going to matter? Who's going to wear the piece? Where is that mistake going to show? If it's in the back, under your arm, like, I don't think it matters that much. Is it worth the stress of unraveling? If you feel like unraveling is not that big of a deal, like how some people feel. There's people who are like, oh gosh, I hate weaving in ends. I just don't want to do it. It's just not worth it to me to even make a piece that has a lot of ends to weave in. And for me, it's actually a meditative thing to do. So I really don't care that much, but everybody is different. So if you're like, oh, I don't mind unraveling it, then I would say by all means, go for it, unravel, fix the mistake, and then move on and be okay with it. But for me, I would feel really kind of stressed about unraveling. So I really in that moment decide, is that mistake okay? Can I live with this or not? And which part of it, like what is worth it to me more? Living with the mistake, is that a big deal? Or, do I want to unravel this whole thing or do I just let it go? And I mean, that's just really up to you. But I do really find that adopting this mindset where you really look at it as a progress, a process, and something that's supposed to bring you joy versus like putting more pressure on you in terms of perfection, it can be applied to many areas in your life or our lives really, where we can just kind of loosen up maybe sometimes and be like, you know what? It's not that big of a deal. I feel like we will just be so much happier adopting that kind of mindset in multiple areas of our lives. Another quick note in regards to having to unravel something because you made a mistake somewhere and didn't maybe realize it while you're still in the same row. When you're still in the same row, it's relatively easy to fix a mistake because you just, what I call knit backwards and undo the stitches while they're still on your needle. And then you just fix the mistake. There's also a couple of ways to undo a stitch down a couple of rows, but it depends on the pattern that you're knitting, if that is harder or easier to do. But I highly recommend, if you're feeling like mistakes are happening quite often for you and you really don't like it and you just rather not having to undo everything, I would recommend putting a lifeline into your project. And a lifeline is simply a contrast colored piece of yarn that you will weave in through the stitches that are on your needle periodically. So throughout your pattern, you'll just do that every so many rows. It depends on your preference. Because when you do that and you happen to make a mistake, all you need to unravel is to that point, right? And then you have this little string in there that is holding your stitches. And then you can just get your needle back through those stitches without them unraveling any further. So it's just a little bit of an insurance, if you will, for your project. In case you make mistakes, you do not have to go back too far or feel like, oh my gosh, when I do unravel this, I'm going to lose these stitches because let's just say it. That's stressful. I have sweat many times over the fear of losing stitches while I'm pulling the needle out and having to unravel and then not being able to catch them all. So yeah, let's not go there. Let's put lifelines in if mistakes are, in fact, what you worry about. But I can be very honest here on this podcast because I am not striving for perfection. I'm striving for balance, for peace, for joy, and for no stress or less stress in my life. So for me, this knitting hobby is a practice to achieve that much more than any perfect piece of garment that I'm going to wear. So yes, my garments have imperfections. There are mistakes in some of them, and I am completely okay with that. Number 2 of the things that I wish I had known when I picked up my needles again after 20 years. The right supplies make a huge difference. Surprise! So instead of picking up whatever yarn and needles you can find at the store, just make sure that you put a little bit of thought in a little bit of research and make sure that you invest in something that is actually going to work well for you, because boy, are there differences. So I know you can just go to, Michael's or Joann's and you can get like a plastic hook or needle and some yarn that you find that is like very cheap. But unfortunately, there's a reason for that, right? Like you will notice that when you start knitting, and you may not even realize that it is hard to work with those supplies or tools if you haven't had any good ones before, right? So if you're a beginner, I would say go kind of like in a medium range of price. Like you don't have to buy anything super expensive. I talk about this all the time because what if you don't end up using it after all? Then you've spent all this money and that's just not worth it. Don't do that. But let's make it easy and let's go for tools and yarn and supplies that are really good to work with, but they are not breaking the bank. So for me, I always recommend a medium weight yarn. So like a kind of like a chunkier yarn. My personal preference is Hue and Me by Lion Brand. I absolutely love it because it's also not full, like 100% wool. So it's really great for anybody who might have an allergy. It's very easy to work with and has gorgeous colors. And then along with that would go a pair of needles in size 8, US 8. That is only because of the thickness of the yarn. If you don't go with this yarn, please check your label to make sure that you have the right size needle. And I would go for circular needles. Personally, I would either start with bamboo or wooden needles or the aluminum metal type needles. My personal preference for a brand is Addi, A-D-D-I. You can get these on Amazon or from various suppliers. So if you Google Addi, you'll find that. It's a German brand, happens to be German like me. It's not the reason why I recommend them, although I find it funny. But I just really do love them. There's a couple of high quality brands out there, but this one I find it in a good range for the price. But again, if you would prefer to use a wooden or bamboo needle, I still recommend a circular needle. In my opinion, it is much easier on the hands. It's so much easier to work with. So find what works for you, but definitely don't go with the first thing that you see. Do a little bit of research and maybe ask some people who are experienced here so that they can give you recommendations. And if you're not sure what you actually need to start knitting, I have a knitting cheat sheet. It can be a total lifesaver when it comes to this stuff. It breaks down all the essential tools, including all the knitting abbreviations and lingo that might confuse you and confuzzle you in the beginning. So you can grab it for free at theknittingmamas.com/start. Okay, speaking of knitting lingo, number 3. Knitting lingo is confusing at first, but it does get easier and it gets easier relatively quickly. Although there are still a couple things that I have to look up even today because I just don't use it often and then I just forget about it. But when I first came back to knitting, I literally felt like I was trying to read a foreign language. I mean, actually, I was, because I was knitting in English now, whereas I learned it in German. So the abbreviations were different. The words were different. For a long time, I was like, why are they all talking about frogging? What the heck does frog have to do with knitting? I just wasn't getting it. And if you were like, what the heck is she talking about? Let me tell you what it is, because I saw it all over. I saw that word so many times and I was just almost like scared to ask what it meant because I felt like, they all talk about it like I should know this. So I just was really worried to even ask the question like, why do you call it frogging? But frogging the knitting world refers to frogging to the process of unraveling something, because they also call it to rip it back. So it's rip it, like a frog sound. And to me, I was like, wow, okay, so that's a stretch, but hey, now I use the word too. It's too funny. But if you've looked at a knitting pattern and were like, whoa, and you felt completely lost, you are definitely not alone. And I wish I had known that it's okay to take it one step at a time back then. I was just like, my gosh, why do I not know this? Like, I used to do this. But then I also realized that I did very simple things back when I first learned how to knit. And I don't remember it being that complicated, but it was probably because I had really super simple patterns. Like I didn't even make an actual piece of garment. It was anything box shaped. So no decreases, no increases, no complicated stitches, just knitting, which is great, which speaks for the craft, being very simple to learn, right? But good news is you do not need to know all the terms right away. And again, the knitting cheat sheet is here to help you decode most of it, not all of it. It's just one page of a glossary in there, but that page holds a ton. So it definitely gets you off to a great start. You can print it out, you can fold it up and put it in your little knitting bag if you want to take it along. It is going to come in handy. Trust me. So go grab that at theknittingmamas.com/start. Okay, and then last but not least, learning with others makes everything easier. When I first got back into knitting, it was the pandemic. There was no one here. And I was just spending hours trying to figure out all this stuff on my own. Obviously, I Googled things and tried to watch some YouTube videos, the usual. But I kind of felt a little bit lost because there's so much information out there. And I wish I had known or thought of the fact that learning in a community really makes all the difference. And it's not necessarily something that we thought of back then in the pandemic, because there was just that was all the things that we were missing, right? Was community. But I created the Knitting Made Simple workshop and our beginner knitters community on Facebook for this reason alone, so that you don't have to figure everything out alone. If you've been struggling to kind of, get this off the ground, and sometimes it's not necessarily even the learning part. Like, you can look at a YouTube tutorial and Google it and watch a video and all that stuff. It's all out there. It really is. There's an abundance of information about this, right? But it may just be the fact that you can't just find some time to sit down and actually do it. Maybe you need the community to hold you accountable, to really sit down and actually learn it, to go out and get your supplies already and say, okay, I'm setting this hour tonight aside to actually look at this and to make this happen. So that might be the part that you're struggling with. And that is exactly why you would need a community and a live class, right? I'm going to walk you through everything step by step, hands-on guidance. I'm going to show it to you, and then you can ask your questions. Or if you want to figure it out on your own, that's totally cool as well. You can grab my guide. It is still $17 at this point. At the time of the recording anyway, it is $17. It will go up really soon because I am re-recording the video tutorials in there. But you can completely just grab that, get it all figure it out, and then you come into the free community and ask questions, and we're here to help you. So whichever way you pick, be part of the community. We would love to have you there. You can find us at theknittingmamas.com/group, and then just request access to the group, and I'll be there to get you in, and then we can go from there. So don't forget, check out the workshop, theknittingmamas.com/workshop. It's on March 12th and March 14th. First date, we have 7 p.m. EST, and the second date, it's going to be at 12 p.m. EST. Can't wait to see you there. Until then, have a wonderful week and grab those knitting needles when you have time or when you don't have time. As a matter of fact, you probably need it more when you don't, because that's when you feel like frazzled and all over the place. Get yourself 10 minutes of knitting and chill out. All right, mamas, I will see you next time right here on the Knit Your Stress Away podcast. Thanks so much for hanging out with me on today's episode. I hope you're walking away with a bit more inspiration and a few ideas to make your self-care a priority. If today's chat gave you a little boost, I'd love it if you could leave a 5-star review on iTunes. This helps other moms discover the podcast and start finding more calm and creativity in their day as well. And don't forget to join us over in the Knitting Mamas community on Facebook by going to theknittingmamas.com/group. Thanks again, and remember, you deserve time for yourself to recharge and feel your best. Catch you next time on the Knit the Stress Away podcast.